This is American Real. I am Roger Brooks. My guest today is Rashad Ahmed. You are a certified life enhancement specialist and coach. It is your second appearance on the show. Rashad, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Roger. It's awesome to be back on your show.
Oh my gosh, we had such a great first podcast together, and I know on your end and on my end as well, people have been asking for more. So I'm really happy that we're able to do this today, because I think the one thing I know that I love doing, and I know it's something that you do as well, is offer a lot of value in these discussions where people could actually benefit from that. So I think today we're going to treat this session, and it was your idea, as really a coaching session. What would it be like if someone came in to do a session with you, and we could talk about a lot of the different topics, but I'm really excited to get into this and see where it goes.
Fascinating, for sure. You're right. We had such a good review, and so many people have watched the interview and said it came across so authentic, and it actually delivered a very realistic experience. And I was pondering on that. And, you know, I was thinking, what makes a great host, podcast host? And I said, it's so similar to what makes a great coach. Because a great podcast host is not there, actually. And a great coach is not bringing himself. So in other words, the client is the focus. And in other words, the guest is the focus. And I was on another podcast, and, you know, the host was talking about the things he's done and how he's done it. And it was a lot about him. And it was fine. But then it was like, all right, so is it about you? Is it about me? And like coaching as well, I could come here and say, well, I've got this degree and this certificate. And most of the times I don't talk about any of that. I'm just, yes, I'm here. And I think that's what makes you great as a podcast host. So full marks to you as well, Roger.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So one of the things I wanted to start out with, it's a topic I know you're an expert in, and it's something I've really been trying to hone in on for, I would say, the last decade, slowly. And the topic is awareness. Yeah. When we talk about awareness and being present, if I'm finding that my thoughts are drifting, you know, in conversations, or I'm in a meeting and, you know, I'm really not thinking about the person that's talking. And actually what you started talking about earlier, it plays right into this first point of awareness.
Yeah.
Provide some insight about how we could become better at being aware.
Yeah. Well, the topic of awareness is quite broad. So you have when you're aware, then you're aware of your surroundings, you're aware of the people in front of you, and most importantly, you're aware of yourself, your state of being and how you are. And being aware leads to another term, which is being present. And being present would lead to another term, which is the presence. So being present in presence. So the word awareness, if you think about it, you are an awareness. So if we take the word out of its usual meaning, like in other words, are you aware that you're speaking loudly? That's you being aware. But then there's another sense of your thoughts, your feelings, your perceptions. That is part of what makes you who you are. And so you could say that, how are you aware of your thoughts? Or how are you aware of your feelings? Or how are you aware of anything? What is that awareness that is aware? And it's a question that most people don't ponder. They're so confused by it. They're saying, what do you mean by who's aware and what's aware? I'm aware of the room. Now, who is the I that's aware of the room? So it brings you to this point of the question, which we will delve into, and it goes into the most fascinating avenues. Ultimately, the purpose of that discussion is for the sake of gaining perspective. Right now, we live in a time where perspective, awareness, clarity is really lacking. And one of the most important things that I do is a clarity coach. So someone would come to me and say, Rashad, you know, I want to take on this job. I want to start this business. I want to marry this person. I want to move to this country. What's going on? Could you tell me? And then I would ask them questions, right? So first of all, I'm entirely present, which means that I am here 100% for you. And in this world, It's one of the rarest things in the world. Most people are asking questions so that they can answer. They're not asking questions so that they can better form a perception about what you're thinking from your perspective. You, as a host, would know that. What is he thinking and what is he trying to say, rather than what does it mean to me? Because most people's subconscious mind personalizes everything. So if I say something to you and I say, oh, I had a nice boat ride, your subconscious mind would say, well, did I have a boat ride as well? Because now you're thinking, how is that related to me? When it's got nothing to do with you. And so being extremely present is so rare these days. And being aware is the number one place you can be aware is of yourself. Most of us don't realize that we're giving out an image of ourselves wherever we go. In other words, we'll say, this person was very arrogant. But is that person arrogant, or is it your perception of them that makes them seem arrogant? And how do I know there's this difference? Ask a child. If you tell a 6-year-old child, honey, could you tell me, is that guy arrogant? What do you think he's going to say to you? He's going to say, Dad, what is arrogance? He doesn't know. He doesn't know. So then, how did you put him into the arrogant box? Because of your perceptions. Growing up, your dad or your friends would have said, you see, when someone speaks loudly or acts very aggressively or confidently, that's arrogance. But is it really arrogance? So then we have all these terms that we use to define who we are and what other people are, yet we're not realizing all the biases that we have contained within us. So we're not actually our authentic selves. And for me, part of clarity is getting to know yourself. And if you've heard of Joseph Campbell, for instance,
Oh,
Joseph
yes.
Campbell, an incredible author. You have, yeah. So Joseph Campbell is one of my loves, and he talks about the hero's journey, which I've studied and understood a lot, where each one of us are undertaking a journey of our own, and he says that each of us have to go on that journey alone. We have to go find the hero within us, and that normally occurs when we're breaking away from childhood, when our entire identities has been built around what our parents said, what our society said. Now we're going to break away from that and say, who am I really? And if you look what awareness is and what self-knowledge is and what all the gurus, the mystics, the ancients, any religion talks about is know thyself. And ultimately, being present and being aware is to know yourself, not to know someone else. Like we know how to do a job. We know how to behave towards our children. We even think we know our spouses. We're like, oh, he's like that. And I can tell you, I didn't get to know my wife until I undertook a journey into myself. And one of my clients, a female client, was quite shocked at this response. I said, I never knew women until I got to know myself. And then through knowing myself, I got to know my wife. And I got to know women in an entirely different way, because I had this impression of what, just use an example of women, children, I've got 4 children. And I honestly can say that I really know children from my last child. My last child, she's 6 now, and I'm intrigued by her because I'm getting to know her from her level of awareness. And I call her my guru. I say my 6-year-old is my guru. She teaches me everything. She teaches me how to engage in life, how to be free, how to be joyful, because I'd be sitting there, the client would call me up and say, but how do I do this? And I said, look at your child. It's nothing to understand. The path to bliss, the path to joy is not some kind of conceptual thinking, planning structure. But that's the short summary of the discussion there.
So Shad, so you said so many good things there, but one of the things that stands out is if you're in a conversation and your thoughts are immediately going to yourself, how do you break yourself of that habit? How do you begin to break yourself of that habit? How do you become more aware, more present in order to, really listen to that person?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. I would like to take it even a step further, and I'm saying when you're not talking to someone and you're alone late at night, because that's when it haunts you, right? Or
Okay.
that you're sitting, one of the famous French philosophers said, all man's problems stem from the fact that he can't sit alone in his own silence. If you look at the amount of distractions we have today, there is not a moment for you to sit and be still. So if you talk about how to become more aware and present so that your thoughts are not taking over you, that's a fantastic question. So it applies to relationships, it applies to interviewing, it applies to being in a job, especially when you're having conflicts, right? Because when you're having conflicts, what you want to do is defend yourself. You actually don't want to know what's actually going on there. So the process of getting to know yourself is to get to know your thoughts. And I think it was Aristotle who said, wisdom is knowing what to ignore. So a lot of things go on in here. In fact, the average human being thinks between 70,000 and 80,000 thoughts a day. And that's a hell of a lot of thoughts, right? And just this thing is the machine just ticking one thought over the other thought over the other thought. If you had to sit and listen to your thoughts and you had to write down every thought out loud, you'd think you're losing your mind. Imagine if you had to verbalize everything you thought. It would be chaotic, but yet we look normal. On the outside, it's like he looks normal. But if you had to listen to what's going on in there, you'd be like, is this guy all right? Because it's just chitter chatter. And I do spend time listening to my thoughts. And what's interesting is that 80% of those 80,000 thoughts are repeating pattern thoughts. So you're saying, for instance, I don't have money to pay the rent. Now, throughout the day, you'll be stewing over that in one form or the other. You see, I can't get the money from him. You see, I'm having that problem. And why can't I get it? And it's just a cycle. And so part of the great ancient teachings is getting to know the nature of thought. What is thought? Where did thought come from? Is it inside us? Until today, neuroscientists have opened every part of our brains, examining every single neuron, and nowhere can they say, that's where that thought came from, right? Because the thoughts don't come from our brain. Because if they did, we'd be able to say, there it is. All they can tell is the resulting emotion and where on the amygdala or any part of your brainstem that the lights are flashing. Okay, well, he's angry. And that part of but what made him angry? And so neuroscience and scientists fall short a little bit here, and they won't find it. So then if thoughts are not coming from your brain, then where are thoughts coming from? And here's a question that puzzles many people. I say, are you thinking your own thoughts, or are you being thought? And people go, huh? Right. Think about it. Think about it. Right? Can you choose your own thought right now? You can't. So then, yeah.
We talked about this last time, and it's mind-boggling.
Mind-boggling.
We are not our thoughts. We are not our thoughts.
Right. Okay, so we did have a bit of that discussion. So,
yes.
So when you know that you're not your thoughts, because look, when you ask the question and you say, it was actually one of these wonderful things that Eckhart Tolle, who wrote The Power of Now, had this great epiphany, and you could say became an enlightened being at the age of 29 when he was going through severe depression. His life wasn't making sense and everything was collapsing around him and he was suffering majorly. And then he said, I just can't stand myself anymore. And then it hit him and he said, who is this I that can't stand myself anymore? And he went, wow. And that was the epiphany. If you can for a moment say, why am I thinking about this? Who is the I that's thinking? And if you can get that, then you have a distance finally, so that you know that you are the awareness, the topic we came back before, watching yourself think. And now the thought and the awareness becomes two people, right? Or two personalities. Like if you look at a cat, like, we have this thing where we say, I don't like the way that I look. Not before you even go out there. Who's the worst critic? I just don't like the way I look. According to who, right? And I always talk about this thing called self-esteem. He has low self-esteem. What does that mean? That means he has a low opinion about himself by himself. Which is like, so who gave you this esteem that you have about yourself? And the way to get some context, think about a cat. Does a cat have low esteem? Does a cat go, oh, I don't like this fur. It's all brown and white. And, I think I'm going to stay at home today and not go chase after mice today. Doesn't have that. Does a tree think about its trunk being too big? It doesn't. But we humans, we have two identities, so we can't stand ourselves. Now, if you want to gain some distance from your thoughts, then you have to recognize one fundamental fact, that you are not your thoughts. Because the I that's asking the questions, I'm thinking, right? Who is the I that's thinking? And then we gain some perspective on that. Now that we know we're not our thoughts, then we can ask another question, which is, who is the I? Right? I think you were going to go there, right?
Absolutely. So who
now,
is it?
exactly. So this topic, you guys have to buckle up because it starts getting a little deep. If you start asking that question, then you have to, now we're going into a realm of transcending thought, because this question can't be answered through thought, but it can be answered through deduction. So by deducing, saying, okay, if I'm not my thought, then who ancient or even current ways of gaining some perspective, where in the state of meditation you reflect on thoughts, feelings, perceptions, and images. So when you're trying to establish who the I is, you've got to recognize, first of all, that I'm not my thoughts, right? And then you've got to ask, then I'm feeling. You're saying, I'm feeling sad. So who is the I that's feeling sad? So if you can ask that question, I am feeling sad, that means there's a differentiation here again. And that's where I get clients who say to me, I'm sad. I say, no, the I that's witnessing is feeling sad, but you are not sad. You don't say, I'm sad. No, you're the awareness that is feeling sad. They asked one of these great Zen masters that was at the final stage of his life. His body was, failing, and he was quite elderly and old. And they said, oh, great Zen master, how are you feeling? And he said, I'm fine, but my body, it's struggling a little bit. So that's the differentiation. The Zen master is recognizing that's the awareness, the presence that is having a body that's basically breaking down and will dissolve. But the I, or the awareness, will always be present and is always watching. So once you recognize that you're not your thoughts, that you're not your feelings, you can even say you're not your sensations. And that's why you can have people who have practiced meditation and stillness and awareness practice. They can go into a dentist's office and not take any injections to numb the pain, because they are so disconnected from that feeling, because they recognize the separation. So there's much power in this awareness, because in the modern day, we're not interested in long stories. We want to get to the bottom line. What's in it for me? I always say, we got no time for chit chat. Tell me how do I benefit? And if you looked at most of the stuff on LinkedIn, it's feel good content. And that's why if you say to someone, oh, let's have a discussion about awareness, they'll say, yeah, that's great, but I'd rather go look at a bird flying off a roof, or a baby getting saved by an elephant, because that stimulates their neocortex, and it gets them those endorphins rushing. Because most of us are so sad, miserable, and feeling so suffocated that we need happy content, right? So here's what's in it for you. It's freedom from the suffering of your thoughts, right? If you look at what Buddha said, the great Buddha, he said that all life is suffering. In other words, all thought-based living will involve suffering. The same thing that gave you joy today will give you misery tomorrow. And the same thing and the reason we suffer is because we're holding on to the ever-changing. Life is changing continuously, but our brains are saying, no, but I'm going to miss her, right? I'm so sad that I'm going to miss her. In your sadness, you're not spending time with her, you're suffering your thoughts, and when she's dead, right? So people, you can't even say the word dead. We're like, no, she passed away. No, she died, and she passed away. However you'd like to sophisticate it, you're going to die, I'm going to die, we're all going to die. And that was a wonderful thing. So recognizing impermanence is your freedom. So what's in it for you? Freedom from suffering. In other words, you can live as a child. And if you look at what Jesus said, that you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven except as a child. So what does that mean? Because when you're a child, and if you look at nirvana, you look at all the ancient practices that they talk about in Zen, in Buddhism, in Sufism, even in the Christian mystical languages, you got to die before you die. In other words, you got to die the thinking mind and the perceptions of life and re-engage as a child, because a child is newly born, and that's what we talk about, being newly born. So you've got to now embrace life for what it is. And so Wayne Dyer says so beautifully, is that we see things for what we are. In other words, he's saying we don't see things for what they are, we see things for what we are. Now, how did we get to shape what we are? Our past perceptions, experiences, and all the rest of it that shaped who we thought we were. So we're not really that at all. So in a long way to answer your question is that, first of all, it's recognizing and gaining an understanding of the separation and the distance between you and your thoughts and your identity and your personality and your perceptions and your feelings, and recognizing the awareness below that. And that gives you a little distance, right? So, yes?
No, go ahead, please.
So meditation is the meaning of the word meditation is to become familiar with. Meditation has something to do with stillness. Mm-hmm. Of course, it is still. What does it mean, become familiar with? What are you becoming familiar with? Because your eyes are closed, you're sitting in a cross-legged position, no distractions. You're getting familiar with that noise in your head. And one of the questions I ask people that sometimes gets them quite puzzled, and I say, close your eyes, and if you're at home and you're watching this and listening to this, try this for a second. And you ask yourself, staring into the air, and say, I wonder what I'll think of next. And if you observe very carefully, try it for a second, just for a second. Close your eyes for 10 seconds and just say this, I wonder what I'll think of next. And that's enough. What you're going to find, if you listen carefully, there's no thoughts that come. Because you are watching your thoughts. Who is the who that's watching their thought? So when you do this, you're like, oh, because thoughts want to go by 80,000 times a day unnoticed and make you believe that you are those thoughts when you're not.
Okay. So a couple of questions here. The first question that comes to mind is, when we think about our typical day, the typical life of any person on earth, why is this subject so protected? Like, why is it not mainstream? Why is it the opposite? Why is it I feel that you have to have a conversation like this, or, be researching it or to get to this point? Why is it so challenging?
Well, that's a brilliant question, right?
Yeah, I just don't understand.
Some of the great teachers, Western teachers as well, that went to the East and investigated how people are brought up, for instance, in countries that are predominantly Buddhist or predominantly not religion-based, right? Because Buddhism is not a religion as such; it's a way of being. Now, when we talk about Buddhism, we're not talking about specifically Buddhism. What I'm highlighting is that cultures and people where the focus is on awareness teach their children this way. And this is what I do with my children, is the first lesson I teach them when they gain some awareness is this recognition. And why it is, there's many reasons why, and we don't want to speculate, but you can tell that it makes a lot of sense financially for people to make you feel this way, right? Because when you feel that you are your thoughts, and your thoughts are 80% negative biased, I'll repeat that. 80% of your thoughts are negative biased. So in other words, 80% of the time, you're looking for worst case scenario. So you're going, what will happen if that fails? I wonder what will happen. Nobody's sitting there going, you know what? Then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and then we're going to make a lot of money. Then I'm going to find the love of my life. No, children do that. But when we grow up, 80% of that is negative. So if you allow yourself to become your thoughts, then you're feeling terrible all the time, right? Because you're saying, I can't believe I didn't get the job. And you know, that lady on Instagram, I mean, now I'm dealing with teenage girls right now, you know, I mean, they're crashing. Teenagers are crashing everywhere. If you look at it, and they are those ones that are rising with awareness, but the pressure on them for having this body that is out of this world and exists 1 in 10 billion or 10, you know, it's insane that there aren't bodies like that anywhere. Yet these girls and these boys as well, right, starving themselves, you know, pumping all these awful types of things so that they can look like that thing. It's because we're created with this self-awareness and the self-esteem. But if we no longer bought into our self-esteem and we got to know ourselves authentically, would we buy anything we didn't need? Why do we buy the phone that somebody else needs? Why do we have to wear the clothes with the brand on it if we didn't have any self-esteem issues, if we didn't have any need to feel different from everyone else? So it does make sense that we push a certain agenda, and our education system does tend to do that. And what we have to do one at a time, as we are doing on the show right now, is to bring this to our children, because a lot of people don't recognize the age that we live in. And because I spend so much time in awareness and my whole group of people around me, when we see what people are doing in their minds and how they're suffering, and if you look at male suicides, they are astronomical. The amount of young men and this is Suicide Week now, it's Suicide Prevention Week right now, and the amount of men and women that are taking their lives because of, and it's exactly what Eckhart Tolle was saying, I can't stand myself anymore. And I'm saying, hold on a second here. Before you do that, who is this that can't stand themselves? Because when you disconnect from the madness in your head, and if you look at what Carl Jung talks about, the collective consciousness, there is almost a pervasive energy that is flowing around all of us. And if you look at the Earth's magnetic field, what they call the Schumann resonance, that measures our emotional state, our hearts emit a magnetic frequency that's 10,000 times more stronger than our brains. So if you want to manifest anything, you've got to look into your heart. It's not in your head. Now, precisely. So then, if our emotions are, and Emoto Masoro, who is an incredible scientist, measured the frequency and the emotions of water. If you take a bottle of water, and I do that in some of my calls, if you speak certain words to the water, it changes the molecular structure of that water bottle. So the molecular compound, you see the way the molecules line up and they create, for instance, you yell at the water and you go, you ugly scumbag. You actually see that the molecules rearrange themselves. Now, you drinking that same water, right? And that's part of the other problem we were speaking about offline, about hacking what we do. The dead water we're drinking is partly contributing to our state of being. Either way, if water changes its molecular structure and energy form based on our emotions, and we are emitting globally the one emotion that the entire planet is emitting right now that has never been in the history. If you had the great Mongol hordes coming in from one side, you know, Genghis Khan and his people, there was fear amongst those people. If you had, you know, for instance, what happened with the Native Americans in your continent when the British came, there was a feeling. On a global scale, the emotion of fear, every heart, a magnetic field is emitting the frequency of fear. It's affecting the Schumann resonance. It's affecting the globe. Now, if the globe is engulfed in fear, what happens to our immunity as a consequence? Right. And what happens to our state of being as a human being when everybody is emitting, think about it. Let's think about a household like this. Someone comes home upset from work. Dad lost his job. What happens to the children in the house? Are they happy?
No.
Right. First of all, they're afraid, but they're miserable because they love their dad and they're afraid. Now they're like, what's going to happen to dad? And dad is sad and nobody wants to, just in a household. Now think about 7 billion people feeling afraid. How do we gain perspective? So Roger, in the past, I would say becoming aware, separating from your thoughts, and getting to know yourself was a nice little fantasy for a guru in the mountains. I'm saying right now is imperative for every human being for them to regain clarity, to undertake this work, to not buy into the fear that is being generated globally. And we don't care who's doing this. It's not our business. What we want to do is take care of our well-being. And right now, if we're eating, sleeping, and consuming fear at every given moment, and you look at our children, I mean, I see it all the time. 5-year-olds going around, oh no, mom, I'm going to be on my PlayStation. I don't want to touch the sand, right? I don't want to go hug my friend. These are consequences that are going to take over. So while we're managing the global pandemic and all of the rest of the things that's happening out there, we need to manage our emotional state and that of our loved ones. And if we're at work, we need to manage that. And we've got to do the exercises right now. Various techniques of meditation, of breathing, of using different types of therapies. Our water, we need living water, spring water. And I'm not talking about recycled Pepsi Cola in a bottle that's been labeled as water. It's not. It's dead water that they've removed all the chemicals and it's affecting our bodies. We're composed of 70% water. Blue light affects our circadian rhythms in a major way. And if we look at now with the pandemic and everybody being at home, we're glued to this thing. So we have to get blue light filters. We need to get glasses that filter out the blue light. And I bought a device that emits red light because red light is super powerful for healing and for restoring the mitochondrial function of our cells and preventing all sorts of damaging effects that blue light are causing, because our night and day-night senses are located within our eyes, and our entire bodies are nothing more than photon receptors. In other words, the sun's energy and the sun's rays is what we thrive on. And if you look at flow state or the state of being in flow with life, it's people who are outdoors. You look at tennis players, you look at people who do anything when you're in nature, because you're being nourished by water, the Earth's magnetic field, by one of the great microbiologists and quantum biologists you should check out is Jack Kruse. He's American and he's very interesting. So we've got to biohack. In other words, we've got to apply these tools and techniques to circumvent the effects of radiation from our cell phones, blue light, our food. So we've got to start. So all of us, what we're doing is we're popping supplements all day because we want to go eat organic. No, it's about, and also the energy. If you look at the Japanese and all ancient cultures do that, before they eat, they give thanks to the food. And so when you give thanks to the food, it changes the molecular structure of the food. When you set an intention, you sit down, you throw your phone away, you get down, you turn off all the distractions, even if it's a plate of peas. Take the pea, give thanks, and recognize that this pea is going to do the most incredible thing. It's going to convert into things like, think about the miracle, tissues, cells, organs, blood, mitochondrial cells, all from some vegetable. So if you can do that with awareness, instead of going to pop all your multivitamins, you're going to get it from your food. But because we're not aware and present when we're eating, we're not being nourished by our food. And our breath, the breath connects you to life. If you can't breathe, then you can't even manage your emotions. Oxygen is vital. So water supply, oxygen, and lighting. So if you're not getting enough sunlight, because, for one reason or the other, then you need to substitute that. And red light right now is something that I'm definitely a huge fan of, and I've seen amazing results from. So there's a lot in there.
A lot in there, Rashad. I wanted to ask you, though, specifically about the red light. What is this device that you purchased, and is it affordable? Is it something that our listeners could find as well?
Definitely go on to Amazon and all the rest of it. I would definitely check out Jack Cruz, Jack, and then Kruse. He's not very friendly, and he's a little abrupt, but he was very overweight and very unhealthy. He's a neurosurgeon, and he started doing the research on red light and the damaging effects of blue light. And so it's a device that emits frequencies in different ranges, and the pulsations of these frequencies can get passed into your skin and into your organs. And so things like fibromyalgia, osteoarthritis, all sorts of skin diseases, and most importantly, I spend like 45 minutes to an hour. I have my time where I go into my red light. So I close the curtains, I have dark curtains, put my red light on, and have minimal clothes. So in other words, you're bathing in this light. And so your eyes start getting a rest from all the red light. And it's incredibly nourishing. So when I do that at the end of my day, I spend like at 5 o'clock after I come back from work or sitting in front of my laptop, then I would do that. And then by 9 o'clock, because my circadian rhythms are restored, I just tell my wife, I got to get to bed. I can't stay up anymore because everything's winding down. But if we get to bed checking our last Instagram post, and that stuff is destructive, guys. Please do not do this to yourselves. The devices are distracting us and causing the anxiety. And internet is great. Your technology is wonderful. We wouldn't be having this conversation, but it needs to come with warnings. It's like, if you're going to smoke or the alcohol or any of these types of things, they might be great benefits, but there's detrimental effects on our emotional well-being. And so one of the practices that I do on this 21-day challenge that I put together that's become really popular, I did this during the time of COVID. It's absolutely free. So if anybody wants to partake in that, it's a 21-day challenge. It's a dopamine reset day. So each day you do different thing. I have a gratitude day. So you go and look around for what you're grateful for to circumvent your brain's natural tendency to look for negativity. And then I have another day, which is your dopamine reset day. So you cannot look at anything in color. If you have to check your email, you turn your screen to black and white. So you're not getting any input from outside there. And what's that doing? It's making your real world come alive. Because when we're on Instagram, YouTube, and we can, at the drop of a hat, go and look at the most stimulating thing, some guy doing, flying from space onto a balloon, and then you look around your room and it's like, there's my dad and there's my mom and I got some broccoli. Forget this, I'm going online, right? Because you can't get an experience like this anywhere. The problem, it's not real. Once the battery runs out, right? And that's what they say, if you want to ever get the family together, turn the Wi-Fi off, right? Because they're like, how do I, did someone put the Wi-Fi back on? Which is, it's a very unnatural state. So there is a price to pay for technology if we don't use it properly.
So Rashad, how does one get on the path of personal development? So we talked about so many things here today, and you went into a lot of great detail, and that's why I love these sessions with you, because you can go deep with them. It gives us time to process what you're saying, and at the same time, you're throwing all kinds of, nuances in there that are very helpful. But if someone wants to get on their own path of personal development, how do you suggest that they begin?
I think the most fundamental first question to ask yourself is, who am I and what am I really doing here? And if we can answer this question truthfully, then we're going to be asking some questions. And the other important question to ask is that, am I following my bliss? Am I living my authentic self? And do I truly know myself? And it's unfortunate, but most of us only ask this question when we're very much senior in life, or that we suffer a major life-altering event. Either we have a disease, or we lose a loved one, or life doesn't make sense. And that's why you find people that have been through a major traumatic event are the most interesting, most humble, and most nicest people. And those people that life has been making sense, because their artificial world of everything working out is working for them, they're boring as hell. I was talking to a very wise man, and he said to me, he's a senior teacher, and he said he was on the QE2. He's quite a senior man. He said he was on the QE2, and you'd remember what it was. And he spoke to the captain, and he said to the captain, "Captain, can you tell me?" Because the captain's always had these interesting things to say. And he said, "Captain, tell me something interesting." He said, those that have been through some type of major disaster in their life, they're fascinating. They come on here, they're having fun, and they drink, and they're just enjoying themselves. But those that have had a normal life, they are boring. They complain about everything. And it was a wonderful story I have to share with you. I was in Emirates in the business lounge, in Emirates. They have this upstairs place with a little bar, and you go around there, and the cabin crew you get to chat to while you're having a drink, because I take very long flights. And so I spoke to this guy, and I was sharing with him what I do, and he said, "Come coach with me." I said, "Sure." I'm not doing anything, and I end up like the cabin crew become the people that I coach. Well, this was before everything shut down for a while. So then he said to me, he said, "In first class, they are grumpy as hell. They don't want to talk. They complain. The shower is not available, but I paid so much and I want a shower, right? Or the duvet is not soft enough and the seat doesn't recline and my caviar is not so fresh." He said, then you go to business class, because he's been through all the cabins. And the business class, they don't want to talk. They want to sleep. They want to do their work. They're not interested in chit chat to get the job done. He says, now economy. Oh, what do you guys call it? He said, now economy. That's where the party's at. These people, they're drinking, they're having fun, they're going on their holiday. It's like 16 of them, families. They're just like squashed up together, eating their plastic forks. And they're like, I can't wait till we land. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And it's the party. And you think to yourself, we're all trying to become rich and famous and successful so we can be, as you see the passengers walking, they're like, oh, I look at these snobs. I got to sit in, in what do they call it, in cattle class. Right. That's where the party's at, right? That's where the real people are. And as you move your way up, it gets the opposite. So we're all trying to be rich and famous and successful and marry the most beautiful person, have the biggest house, and you wonder, guys, what are you doing all this for? Have a wake-up call. And so a lot of people come to me and they say, COVID happened. And I said, you know what COVID didn't happen? The universe is giving you a chance right now. It's saying, press pause, my friend, because the way you were heading is not your bliss, because you're going to end up till you're 65 or 70. Your bones are beginning to be cracking. And there are some 70-year-olds in perfect shape, and I'm going to be one of them, right? But there are those, and you're looking back and going, why did I spend all my time stressing over shit that was not relevant to me when I could have been doing the things that I ultimately love? And what you ultimately love is not going to Machu Picchu or visiting the Alps, or that's great. But it's finding your bliss is in being able to look at your child's eyes, laugh and giggle with them, taking your wife out for a sandwich and a meal, or sitting in your, Eckhart Tolle talks about, he had this old 1974 car, and every time he'd look at it, he'd just smile and he goes, I love this car. And everybody'd be like, this guy's mad. He said, well, I used to have a bicycle before, right? And so when I look, and then he said, I invited my dad over, and I said to my dad, come see, I got a car. And his dad just went like, what's wrong with you, son? Like, you should be driving, a Ferrari or something like that. But we've got it all backwards. So how do we go on a journey of personal development? Ask yourself the question, are you living your bliss? And I always avoid what people generally do in my space, is go show you why your life is a problem and why you need to optimize that. What I do as a coach is say to you, you are perfect exactly the way you are. The reason you're unhappy, because you don't know what that perfection is. So I'm not here to show you why you've got a problem, because that's what you do. You go in and they talk to you and say, it's because your father hit you when you were 7. And you're like, oh, what do I do about it? Well, you're going to have to come see me. I got a client who's been 19 years in psychotherapy, right? And no offense, psychotherapy works very well. And she says, I'm tired of talking. I want to get on with it, And I've had tremendous results, because that's where coaching comes in. So the one aspect is, and of course, psychotherapy has a tremendous place and it's very important, but it's understanding who you are. Then I hold your hand, as a coach does, as a basketball coach does, as a football coach, and say, look, That's not how you kick the ball. In other words, that's not how you look at the world. So tomorrow, so for instance, so as an example, they'd say, tomorrow I have to go pick up my children from school. And I said, no, no, no. This is the coach telling you, you get to go pick up your children from school. You don't have to go pick up. I'm going to go home and cook for my husband. You get to cook for your husband. Oh, I got to go spend the weekend with the kids. You get, because you got kids, right? You got food to cook, right?
Yeah.
And that change of perspective, and that's, Roger, for me, if I would summarize your entire existence and what I do, perspective. So like a client said to me, I think I need a change of scenery. I said, no, you need a new pair of eyes, my friend, because you're not seeing the world properly the way it actually is.
Wow. So profound. And I'm so happy that that's where you took that conversation, because that's really what I was hoping to kind of hear and find out is, you know, where does this go? And it's all about perspective, and it makes so much sense. And it's interesting because when I coach people to help them write their first book, I have a very similar philosophy. I don't try to tell them how to write or what to write. They're the expert of their book. I just try to give them more of them, right? Allow them to speak their voice louder and stronger and more confident, because that's what it's all about. I, as a coach, I can't intervene my views on that. I just want to give them back more of them. So I'm so happy that you said that. And I think a lot of people will be able to relate to the way that you structured it, and that it's really about, okay, taking a step back and what is your perspective on the exact same situation. That's
right,
awesome.
Right. Yeah, and it's just to add on to what you're saying as a coach, is that the coach, I think my number one skill is the ability to ask questions. And if you look at what you do, because us as individuals, we never think of the question that is staring us in the face.
Yes.
Right? And that's what you would do and say, but have you thought about, like for instance, they'd say, well, I have nothing interesting to say. And you'd say, well, you know, didn't you do this? And what about that? And I'd be like, oh yeah. And that's with my clients as well. I'll be like, and they'll say, no, I have nothing to be happy about. My life sucks. I'm like, okay, so you do this and you do that and you do that. Like one of the wonderful story that I love is that there was a man in a wheelchair, and another man came up to him and said, oh, you poor thing. It must be so difficult being in the wheelchair. And the man said, you kidding me? This is the source of my freedom. If it wasn't for this wheelchair, I'll be stuck in the bed. This thing allows me to get around.
Wow. Beautiful.
You see? Perspective, right? And so that's the most important thing, and also what is so rare, which you have, and that's why you'd make such a great coach as well, is being present and being totally attentive. It's amazing. If you look into most people's eyes, they're actually not there. You're talking. I mean, the audience can relate to this. Even in an interview, the guy says, okay, well, tell me, and ask you that worst question as an interviewer could ever ask you. Is like, tell me about yourself. And you're like, oh God, not that question, right? Or where would you like to be in 10 years? Let's hope recruiters don't ask those questions, right? But then you watch their eyes. Yeah. They're really not interested.
Right.
They're looking out for what they want to hear, not what you are. They want to hear, okay, does he meet this tick box? Which is not an authentic question. What you should do is be upfront and say, look, can you meet this requirement that I have? Instead of pretending like you actually care about what people say. And, you know, I had a client just burst out into tears, and she said, Rashad, for 20 years, I've never had anyone just be entirely present for me. She says, you don't talk. You're just there. And so one of these Vietnamese monks was saying, he ended up, writing a book of his own. And he said, I would go, as part of our practice is that we would go to all these villages and just, be with the people. So all these women would come up to me, mostly ladies in their senior years, and just ask me questions. And I would not answer. I would just sit, and they'd say, my son did this and my father did this. And he would just go, oh, that's terrible, And they'd say to him, you know what? I got my answer. You're amazing. Thanks so much. And he said, all he did was be fully present and attentive. And he didn't judge. He didn't make his judgment and go, oh, God, no, you see, that's your problem. We love giving advice, and that's the fatal mistake. Giving advice is arrogance. It's arrogance. Someone comes up to you, you tell them what to do. You say, What would you do, my friend? Because you are capable enough to make your own decision. And if you're not, I'm going to teach you how to make a decision. But I'm not going to tell you what to do because I don't know your life. It's arrogance to say, I think you should do that. But you're not that person. You know, when somebody dies and they say, I know how you feel. No, you don't.
Right.
Or, you know, someone's recovering for something or lost a job or lost a loved one. I know what it's. No, you don't. Never say that.
Right.
You know?
Wow.
So,
Wow. Well, that leads to the last topic that I wanted to hopefully cover with you today, and that is well-being and healing. I know that's something that's very important to you. And for those people that out there that are suffering, and whether it's through COVID, whether it's through a loss, whether it's through, you know, a career that they're not happy with, whether who knows what it is, how can we help these people today?
yeah, I think, you know, I started doing these free Saturday classes, which was one of the best things I ever did. I invite people to come on Saturday afternoons at my afternoon, and we get about 20-25 people. And I just almost on a weekly basis, I do a silent, still meditation and a whole bunch of practices. So what I would suggest and offer to people out there is a couple of simple things. Optimize your eating. In other words, become fully aware with your eating. Number two, your breath, especially with COVID, is going to be vitally important. The other thing is your fear response. You have to manage that. You have to go into the opposite of fear. So, in other words, if you want to try to be less fearful, there's no point you saying don't be afraid. It does not work. If you say don't be afraid, you become more afraid. So what you have to do is the opposite emotion. You really have to force yourself to look for things that you love, look for things for gratitude, create the gratitude journal, spend a lot of time looking in your environment going, what can I be grateful for? What's actually working for me? That's really important. The other practice is to sit still, turn all your devices off, sit in your place of comfort and request family or friends and say, let me be alone. Sit and watch yourself. So in other words, you don't have to meditate because I don't believe in meditation being something prescriptive that you do 10 minutes a day and then return back to the chaos. Become aware. In other words, meditation means becoming familiar with, get familiar with your thoughts, get familiar with your perspective. So if you can do, for instance, Wim Hof, he does a deep breathing technique, which has become very, very popular. The other one that you can look at is the Buteyko breathing, which is on the other end of the spectrum, which is about minimizing how much you breathe. So in other words, if you look at it, when we sigh, it's and we yawn, it's the body's need for more oxygen. So what you actually have to do is it's a process, and you can look up Buteyko as well. Spend 10 minutes a day priming your day. So I have a thing called a morning primer, where instead of you now waiting to react to the day, you create the day, and then you in the morning have your eyes closed, and there's plenty of things out there. I mean, I'm not promoting my specific thing. Go online, do a morning primer, prime your day, and most importantly, guys out there, the number one thing that we lack is dignity for ourselves, the self-respect to honor the divine within us. You could say the God within us, the soul within us. We're so busy putting food on the table, chasing after things that make us happy because we're feeling miserable inside. Put yourself first and say, I will choose myself. Fresh air, breathing, spend an hour in meditation, reflection, walking in nature. Make time for yourself, because if you don't, and men more so than women, you've got to love yourself. The men laugh at me when I say there is an inner child in all of us. That inner child longs to be loved and nurtured, to be treated with kindness and compassion. Even the words that you say to yourself, be very considerate. So a client says to me, yeah, I used to be so stupid. And I said, sorry, I'm not allowing that. You can't even talk to yourself in your past about yourself like that. You've got to say, I wasn't as aware back then, and I didn't know any better. I never allow words to myself where I say, oh my God, I'm being so stupid. You're not. And you never use nasty words with yourself, because the way you talk to yourself is the way you're perceiving others and the way others perceive you. And your dignity and your self-respect is so important. So love your inner child, treat yourself kindly, and make the time to become very aware and to absorb, become very aware of the psychosis. As Carl Jung was talking about, is that there's a global psychosis. You could say it's a pandemic of fear and of confusion, and our devices are not helping. So please use your devices responsibly, because it's wonderful, but it can really cause, especially with our children and adults. Let's not forget. I mean, adults too. And go towards love. If there's one thing that is the only emotion that has no equal, it's love. And love does not mean love only for God or for your girlfriend or for your cat. Just go look for love everywhere. Force your brain, because your brain's looking for what's wrong in this world. Go and force it, teach your neurons. And I've got so many practices, they're all for free as well, on how to spend your day looking for what is working rather than what's not working. And it's all out there. In a connected age like this, you have no excuse. There are thousands of teachers out there. You can even look at gurus from the 70s. For instance, Alan Watts is not a guru, but we spoke about Alan Watts. Listen to Alan Watts, listen to Eckhart Tolle, Joe Dispenza. They're all American too, because they all went east. So for me, my knowledge comes from the east, but they all went east. And of course, a lot of the Western problems are going to need Westerners to fix those problems, because part of the technological problem that we created was this problem. Now we've got to find substitutes to be able to correct them. There's plenty of information out there, and there's incredible human beings out there doing what I do and what you do, Roger, and what we all do to bring quality of life back. And it's away from the screens. It's definitely away from the screens.
Well, Rashad, I knew this was going to be another amazing session with you. And I called a session because I feel like I just went through one of your coaching sessions for an hour, and I'm so appreciative of that. And I'm so appreciative of how much you give of yourself every single day on LinkedIn and your other platforms. I would like you to spend just a moment letting people know a little bit more about you. And if they want to get connected with you, maybe they want to hire you as their coach, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, on Roger, first of all, you have an energy about you that makes our calls fantastic. I don't talk much when I'm doing my coaching. I'm more listening. So you had a double session there as well. But you do really bring something special, and I must commend you for having an incredible energy as well. And I can see that because I speak to people all day, every day. If you type into Google Rashad Ahmed Zen Coach, it would give you that. If you type just Zen Coach, there's many Zen coaches. My website is zencoach.co.za. So zencoach.co.za, or you Americans would say .co.za. Or on LinkedIn, search for Rashad Ahmed Zen Coach. I'm on there as well. And I've got a lot of free stuff, free 21-day challenge, free support group where I do, all of us, we've got an amazing family where we're all working together to reach that new level. And we talk every day, we post every day. And it was about 100 people now, and it's phenomenal. And then on the weekend. So all the free work sustains my soul and it encourages me. So I actually don't go and ever upsell. You'd never hear me saying on any of these things, look, if you like this thing, come, I don't do that. It's just not authentic. Yet I do run a professional coaching practice, and I have amazing clients that pay me extremely well. So when I do get paid well, I love giving back. So it all works out. So I never try to be inauthentic with myself or say, yeah, well, I'm just doing charity. No, I'm not doing charity. I do charity, but then I charge a lot of money. So it all works out very well, whichever side of the spectrum that you can be on. So yeah, Roger, absolutely love your energy and love being on your show as well.
Thank you so much. I just want to say that I know we talked about this before, but I just feel like we need to do this more often. If we could do this 3, 4, 5 times a year, it would be good for me. It would be good for our audience. And I so appreciate you being here today.
I'm at your service, Roger. I love being on the show. And if the audience likes that and they want us to have another one, please share your comments and feedback. And we can do it so much more interactively. Now I'm starting group sessions as well. So you'd be able to join in. We'll be having up to 8 or 9 people in group sessions where we're doing this. I do these master classes as well. And so there's a lot of exciting things coming out. And I'm going to talk to you about my upcoming book, because you are the master coach on the books as well. So I'm really excited about my upcoming book as well.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. Rashad Ahmed, welcome back to American Real. Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, Roy.